All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Attainable Able Savings Plan webinar along with Easterseals College Navigator program. My name is Mary Rabenis, and I am joined tonight by Ali Ulrich. And I will introduce her. She's the program manager for this College Navigator program at Easterseals. So I'm really excited to be presenting this with Ali for many reasons, but the number one reason is clearly that College Navigator really ties in so well with the mission at MEFA in terms of what we do. That mission is to help families, individuals plan, save, and pay for college. And we offer a lot of free guidance around that process. And so College Navigator really meshes well with what we do, and it also meshes well with Attainable, since education is a qualified expense. And so I think it's great that we're presenting together. So Ali, welcome. And thanks for joining. Thanks for joining tonight. And I thought I would just share a little bit about Ali with all of you, and just, read her bio so you know a little bit about her and how she joined Easterseals. So Ali is the program manager for Employment and Transition Services, or ETS, at Easterseals, Massachusetts, where she manages the College Navigator program. She started at Easterseals as the youth services intern and then became a job developer, helping adults with disabilities find and maintain employment. She then became the ETS program manager and helped launch College Navigator over 3 years ago. She's originally from New Hampshire and a City Year AmeriCorps alumni, which is such a great program. I love that program. And she graduated with her Bachelor's of Social Work from Wheelock College with a minor in understanding autism. And then just a little description about the College Navigator program. The Easterseals College Navigator program helps students with disabilities develop their skills beyond the college classroom to prepare them to reach their long-term educational and employment goals. College Navigator services are individualized to address the students' needs through face-to-face meetings on or near campus, which I'm sure right now is paused, or through virtual meetings, or a hybrid of both. And so Ali will talk about how they deliver those services and what that looks like currently during COVID. So I think the plan is for me to start with Attainable and share that, and then Ali's going to run through her slides with College Navigator. So I'll jump right into it so we kind of stay on track. So Attainable is the Massachusetts Able Savings Plan. It's available nationwide. MEFA is the state sponsor, and Fidelity Investments is our program manager. So when you go to open one of these accounts, you do it through Fidelity. And then before we get going, I'll just share a little bit about how to participate in the webinar. The chat is disabled, so if you want to ask a question, you can do it in the Q&A. Also, transcription is enabled, so you should be able to see that. And so to use that, if you want to see the closed captioning, you should see it, or you can also hide it. And then lastly, to exit, you're just going to hit leave to exit the webinar. So a little about myself and what I do at MEFA. My role is really education around able accounts and spreading awareness about the benefits, but it's also partnership building. So I'm excited, like I mentioned, to be doing this with Easterseals, and really just to spread awareness about these accounts and their benefits. I am super passionate about helping families and individuals with disabilities and do educational trainings on the program, pre-COVID in person, and now obviously virtually. And I'm also a mom of a daughter with a disability, so I understand the journey and a lot of the challenges that go along with that. And so a little bit about MEFA and what we do. I mentioned it when we started, but we're really a great resource for anyone in Massachusetts and beyond around the whole process of planning, saving, and paying for college. We're a not-for-profit state authority created in 1982. And how we offer these services, it's really just free guidance around, things like financial aid, planning for college. We do offer some tax advantage savings plans. Attainable is one of those. We also offer the Massachusetts 529, the U Fund, as well as a prepaid, which is the U plan. And we're also a private loan lender. We do private family student loans as well to help to pay for college. So a little about MEFA and our partnership and how we came to work with Fidelity. Attainable, or the Massachusetts ABLE Plan, was launched in 2017. And like I mentioned, we're the state sponsor and Fidelity is the program manager. And so our partnership with them dated back to 1999 when we selected them to be the program manager of the U Fund, which is the 529 College Savings Plan. So when this was launched in 2017, it was natural for us to partner with them. They've just been a great partner for us. They're very passionate about the program and do a lot to support our work in spreading awareness, obviously, and trying to reach as many folks with the program that we can. So I thought I'd share history, excuse me, grabbing water, about the ABLE Act and how these ABLE accounts came about. So that Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE Act, amended the federal tax code back in 2014, and it added this section 529A, which is an ABLE account. And it established these ABLE accounts, which are tax-exempt accounts for an eligible individual with a disability to use it for a qualified disability expense. And I'll talk about what those are, while still keeping your eligibility for federal public benefits. So this was a really huge deal for this to come about. It took almost a decade for this legislation to get passed. And the real sort of push to get this passed was, and that still exists today, currently, unless you have an ABLE account or a special needs trust, and you do get some of these federal public benefits like SSI, you can't save over $2,000 or else it will affect those benefits. So if you have an ABLE account or a special needs trust, it allows you to be able to save over that $2,000 asset cap. And then there are other benefits that come with ABLE accounts as well. There are tax benefits that come with the accounts, and I'll talk about that as well. But that was really the real push. And actually, it was started by a group of Northern Virginia parents of children who had some children with a disability, and they really advocated and worked with local national orgs to get this legislation passed. And so how are you eligible to open one of these ABLE accounts? So there is an age criteria to it. The individual with the disability is always the account owner, a beneficiary on an ABLE account, and their disability has to have occurred prior to the age of 26. And then if they're getting SSI or SSDI due to their disability, they're automatically eligible to open an ABLE account. Or if they meet that age requirement and they have a disability that Social Security lists in one of their compassionate allowances, they're eligible. Or then lastly, for our program, if you self-certify, so essentially you meet the age requirement and you say that you have some type of physical, mental health disability, intellectual, developmental disability, such as some of the things that Social Security might mention in their Blue Book. If you have this type of disability, you would be eligible to open an ABLE account. We don't require documentation in terms of when you open the account. You really do self-certify. We just tell people, you should have it in your files should you need it at some point, but you don't need, we just tell people you should have some type of letter from an MD saying you do have this type of disability. You don't need it to open the account per se, but you should have it in your files. These are, this is a broad category of qualified expenses for ABLE accounts. The categories are broad. It's going to be things like healthcare, housing. You can use these accounts to pay for rent, pay your mortgage. You can use it for education, which really ties into this webinar tonight. You can use it for transportation. So that includes things like buying a car, but also even Uber and Lyft. The other category is assistive technology, and Easterseals also has a program that supports that. So that's another qualified expense for an ABLE account. employment training, personal support services if you need a PCA, and then lastly, basic living needs. So things like clothing, food, you could use your ABLE account for that as well. I tell people the list is not exhaustive, so there's certainly going to be things that fall outside this, such as, if your child needed to go to therapeutic camp in the summer, would that be covered under his or her ABLE account? Absolutely, yes. This is kind of a broad category, and this is what you'll see on ABLE National Resource as to what's qualified. But in general, it's, this is a pretty good sized list, even with that. So, but there may be things that fall outside it that, of course, you would be able to use it for. And so really the benefit of these ABLE accounts and why, they're so important. I mentioned this earlier. It allows the account owner or beneficiary the ability to save over $2,000 without it affecting federal benefits if they receive them. That's the huge one. But even if you're not getting federal benefits, you don't have to be in order to open an ABLE account. It comes with other tax benefits that I'll talk about. The account is owned by that individual with the disability. So even if someone's 5 years old, they're eligible for an ABLE account. That 5-year-old is the account owner on the ABLE account. And then you could have a parent, a guardian, or a power of attorney be what we call it on our program, a person with signature authority or a PSA to help to manage the account for that individual. Anyone can contribute to an Attainable or ABLE account, family, friends, the person obviously who owns the account. The other really nice feature of these accounts is that you have immediate access to the funds. So they really operate like a savings or checking account. You can have access to the money right away. And lastly, it really provides this individual with more financial independence because they're allowed to save and multiple tax benefits, which I'll talk about in an upcoming slide. And so these are some sort of basic numbers. Some of this is the same across the board. Some of the information here is specific to our program, and I'll tell you where that is. But in general, across the board for all ABLE programs, the total annual contribution cannot exceed $15,000 in a calendar year. So you can't put in more than $15,000 in a calendar year into your ABLE account. If the individual or the account owner beneficiary is working, they can actually add an additional $12,760 on top of that $15,000 into their ABLE account. So potentially you could put in $27,760 into the account. And there's some criteria for that. The person can't be participating in the employer's retirement plan, but potentially you have the option as that account owner to be able to contribute additional money. So I wanted to mention that. And then specific to our program, the max that you can save in one of these currently in Attainable is up to $500,000. And then if you are getting SSI, you can save up to $100,000 with no impact on your benefits. And then lastly, we have no annual account fee for our program. And then I'll just mention there are currently, I believe, over 40 ABLE programs nationwide. Most states have one. Some states join together as kind of a collective group, and they're under the same program. But in general, right now, there's about over 40. And I'll share a resource at the end where you can go to kind of find out more information about other, just more information about ABLE and resources around that. So this is a quick screenshot of what the portfolios look like. There are 8 of them, I believe, and they start at the top. You can see that money market, which is a lower risk option, and then they get more aggressive in growth. They're a mix of stocks and bonds and short-term securities. Obviously, it's based on your risk tolerance, so, lower risk, potentially, it is going to have a lower return, greater risk, potentially greater return. Again, it's going to be a risk tolerance, and the folks at Fidelity can help you. You can go to the site to learn more and see this screenshot, as well as they can answer any questions that you might have. But like I said, it starts at a lower risk money market, and then they just get more aggressive in growth. And then these are, there's no annual account fee for the program, but there are, just like for a regular 529 college savings, there are portfolio fees on the portfolios. So those range from 0.57% of assets to 0.94% of assets on each specific portfolio, depending on what you choose. Some of the tax benefits that I talked about earlier, this first one is really helpful for people who have overfunded a 529, potentially grandparents or parents, and they want to be able to roll over that money to another individual. So this Able Financial Planning Act was legislated federally and provided the beneficiary is the same individual on both accounts or family member of the other, so siblings. It's now allowable to transfer funds from a 529 college savings plan into an Able account with no tax or penalty up to that 15K. So within 12 months, you can do that. So I've definitely heard of families doing that where they might have, an individual may not be going to college, they had put money in a 529, you can now roll it over if they're eligible for an Able account. And then the second one is a saver's credit, and it's something that an Able account owner, around certain criteria, based on essentially your contribution to your Able account, there's a max of what you can take on this. I believe for a single person, it's $2,000, and for a married individual, it's $4,000. But based on your income, you can essentially take a tax credit on your contribution into your Able account. You can learn more by going to the IRS site, but it's a credit that you can take on your Able account contribution. You're eligible if individuals are eligible if they're 18 or older, not a full-time student, and not claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. And then lastly, another advantage tax-wise is as long as the withdrawals, you're spending these on a qualified disability expense, which you should be, the account growth, you're not paying federal income taxes. It's tax-free on that account growth in Attainable. And in Massachusetts, it's also state income tax free as well. So for Mass residents, it's federal and state income tax free as well. This is a video of a gentleman named Brian Guay. I thought I would share. I know it's very impactful for parents to see this. Really highlights how having an Able or Attainable account has been beneficial for Brian. I met him through a Mass Rehab Commission counselor, and I was really looking to find people to share their stories. And so I met Brian, we were able to share his story, and CNBC did a story on him, and then locally Channel 5 picked it up and they did a story on him as well. So I thought I would just play it for you so you could get a sense as to how Able has been beneficial for Brian.
That's me.
Brian Guay can picture his future.
This is my brain's idea. Brian Austin Guay is the next generation in a long line of farmers.
Brian may have autism, but today at age 25, Brian only accepts two labels, artist and farmer.
I'm gonna have my farmer's business someday.
To achieve that dream, his mom Ann explained he needed a plan.
So he got this idea that he should be able to save money.
Brian also got 3 jobs.
This is my work schedule.
6 days a week, Brian works at Home Goods, a goat farm, and a horse barn. But for people with disabilities, saving those paychecks can be complicated.
Brian benefits from a lot of public services, and there were restrictions as to how much money he could have in his name.
That changed in 2014 with a federal law nicknamed the ABLE Act. It provided a new option for people with disabilities to build a fund for both short-term and long-term expenses.
You can save, and the interest that you earn on these accounts is not taxed.
Similar to a 529 plan for college funds, MEFA offers an ABLE account called the Attainable Savings Plan. It has no minimums, no fees, and there are no worries about losing Medicaid or supplemental security income benefits. Fidelity manages the investment portfolio portfolio, but unlike a 529 plan, ABLE account holders can withdraw amounts at any time without penalty.
Right around 3,000 folks have begun to save. We're seeing the average account balance is about $8,000, which is pretty healthy when you consider it's a relatively short time frame.
Now that Brian has an account, he deposits about $1,000 each month from his paychecks.
He's saved a substantial amount of money. And our dream is to look into other opportunities, whether that be we purchase a farm, we buy an interest in something, that he'll have choices.
In the meantime, Brian sets his alarm for 5:30 every morning. He says it's good practice.
I wake up every day because I'm farmer.
Saves $1,000 a month. That's through hard work. Like 529 accounts, relatives and friends can also make contributions to one of these ABLE accounts. For more information about how to open one, you can check out our WCVB app.
All right. I love sharing that. I love sharing his story. I just, I wish my whole presentation could be stories, frankly. So it always makes me smile whenever I see that. And his mom, Anne, always talks about, which also makes me happy, even during COVID, they go monthly to the Fidelity office in Burlington, and the office is closed, and they have sort of a box that you can make deposits, and they go and they still go monthly. And she talks about, prior to COVID, it just became such a community for him, and the folks at the investment center also became really, really close with him. So I love hearing them speak about the program and about just the community that they've also developed from going to the branch, which is really nice. These are some of the resources I talked about a little bit earlier. The first one is this ABLE National Resource Center, or ablenrc.org. I highly recommend you go here. It's a great site to learn really anything about ABLE. You can also go there and compare state plans. I encourage you to sign up they have webinars all the time on ABLE, and they sort of dissect it, and just much information is there. So I highly recommend you go there. Also on the MEFA site, mefa.org, we have a dedicated page for Attainable, where you can go to learn all about the program. And we also have local resources listed on our site, including, benefits counseling resources locally, such as Mass Rehab Commission or Work Without Limits, and just some other local resources. So we're always continuing to build that portion of the site as a resource for folks. Lastly, Attainable Savings Plan. To open an account, you go to fidelity.com/able to open the account. And then this last link, you can go, we have a registration form that you can sign up for updates and info regarding Attainable, the program, when we offer new webinars, really just, updates to ABLE. You can sign up there to get on the list for those. And then lastly, this is my contact info, my name, my email. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. These are the channels, social channels that MEFA is on, and where we push all our content, including Attainable. So I encourage you to follow us there as well. So I'll pause there. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I don't see anything yet. So I'll hang out for a few minutes before maybe Allie starts. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer them, or I can also answer them, after Allie finishes with her presentation. Don't see anything yet. All right, well, Allie, I think you're the star of the show here. So I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Awesome. And then I will start screen sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much for coming today. If any questions pop up in your brain while I'm presenting, Mary's going to be monitoring the Q&A, and I'm happy to pause and answer questions as they're relevant throughout the slides, or answer them at the end. And I'll also have my contact information at the end for any follow-up. So I'm here to talk to you guys today about the College Navigator program here at Easterseals. Technical difficulties. There we go. So why am I here today to talk to you is that we identified the problem, which was that because of the great services that high school students are getting these days, students with disabilities are getting into college at a much higher rate than previously. Unfortunately, their completion rate is much lower than that of their peers without disabilities. And we started looking at this problem through talking to our employment clients who we are trying to find and maintain employment for, and talking to the ones that maybe didn't graduate college, but tried it, to say, why didn't you graduate? Because we saw that they had much less opportunity than those who had graduated. And they really just need extra individualized support. They might have not known where to turn for different resources on campus, and they just needed more than the college was able to provide them at that time. And so we created our College Navigator program about 3 years ago. So some of the challenges that we saw students were facing was adjusting to the independence and freedom of college. This is probably universal for students with and without disabilities, but they got much less institutional support. The laws do not require colleges to provide the level of support that the laws require high schools to provide. Oftentimes they have weak executive functioning skills like time management and organization that are kind of essential to balancing a college course load. Sometimes they were resistant to change. Having a whole new environment and new ways of having to do things can be really difficult for students. Oftentimes they didn't know what resources were available on campus. In high school, those resources are kind of presented to you on a very nice silver platter, where I would kind of akin them more to an Easter egg hunt. In college, you have to go looking for them and be independent. Navigating the accommodation process can be really difficult. I'll talk about a student in a moment who is one of our basis for this, who really struggled with that. And they're often unable to self-advocate. They don't know exactly what they need or how to express that to people. And in college, you know, they really have to be self-advocates much more than they were in high school. So just a few personal stories from the clients that we talked with, and maybe one of these will resonate with you and kind of sound like your student or child. We talked to a young man with autism spectrum disorder. He had gotten really specialized instruction in high school because he really needs to understand the details of everything. But he was really unable to advocate for himself for his accommodations in college. As a result, he was constantly interrupting the professor and asking questions to clarify very minute details that other people would generally overlook. And so what he really needed was someone to help kind of redirect his focus on these really small details, and someone help to connect with specialized academic tutoring versus the standard tutoring. So someone who could help him explain to the tutor what exactly he needed, and someone to put a plan in place, like, okay, every time you have a question in class, write it down. And then let's talk to your professor about either, you know, staying after class to meet with them to answer your questions, or sending them an email after class to answer the questions, so the professor can get through their lesson, the other students aren't getting frustrated, and you still get what you need as a student to understand the material. But he didn't even know that was an option. Another young man with schizophrenia had no idea what a curriculum was, didn't understand how to read his syllabi. His medication caused him to be really drowsy in the morning, but he had had morning classes. He didn't know that he could ask for an accommodation or request that he only have afternoon and evening classes. He also had a difficult time navigating the systems. For example, for his accommodation to have a private room and extended time for an exam. Well, before every single test, he had to go and fill out paperwork with Disability Services, bring that to the professor, have them fill it out, bring it back to Disability Services that it was approved. And he would forget to do that, and then he wouldn't get the accommodation and wouldn't do well. And as his stress level increased, so did his symptoms of schizophrenia. And as he put it to me, do you know how hard it is to pay attention in class when you don't know what's real, what you're seeing? And so, you know, just simple things like someone explaining to him how he could do this, or reminding him that he needed to go and fill out this form, would have really been helpful to him and hopefully helped him stay in school. So we started the program in January of 2018. We got our first student by way of the Department of Developmental Services in California. He is a California resident, but he is studying cello at the Berklee College of Music. Adam is a unique story to our services. He actually has one College Navigator that is with him 35 hours a week, full time. That's not generally how our service works, but we try and meet the needs of each individual student. So that's what this student needed, and there was a funding stream, and so we worked with it. And Adam was really our first student. This was kind of an idea in our head, and he came along and we were like, well, we were thinking about doing this, let's try it. We then later that summer of 2018 started a partnership pilot program with Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services to serve 10 of their autism spectrum disorder only clients who were pursuing higher education in the Northeast region of Massachusetts. It was really successful. The students really did well. We got great feedback from the DDS service coordinators. And so the second year they said, all right, we want to increase your capacity. We're going to give you 20 slots. And we want you to serve people in both the Northeast and the Boston regions. Then we were supposed to be able to apply to become a permanent program in the spring of 2020. As we all know, COVID-19 hit and everything changed for everyone. So that was postponed a year, and they said, okay, you know, we're going to give you 30 clients. And not only can you serve people in the Northeast and the Boston regions, but you can serve people anywhere throughout Massachusetts and even outside of Massachusetts through virtual services. Prior to COVID-19, we were only working with students on campus. We were meeting with them in person. If they needed a follow-up meeting, you know, via Zoom or phone call or emails in between, we certainly did that, but our primary focus was meeting in person. When COVID-19 hit, we switched everything to be virtual, and they saw the success of that. We had our first 2 college graduates while providing virtual services. And while we had previously had to say no to students who needed this service outside of those 2 regions, we were now able to offer this service to anyone throughout Massachusetts, and even students who wanted to go to school outside of Massachusetts if they were from here. So this was a really exciting opportunity. We have since applied to become a permanent program, and we are hoping to find out by this July 1st, whether or not that happens or if the pilot program just continues to expand. So that's really exciting, and we're hoping to, once it's a permanent program, we'll have no limit, and we'll just be able to serve as many clients as DDS refers to us, and we can just hire more staff as needed. So what is the College Navigator program? I've kind of been talking about how we started it, but like, what exactly is it? So it's a College Navigator is a staff person who works individually with your students based on their needs and tailored to their strengths to help them build skills in college, but that will also translate to employment and lifelong skills. Time management, organization, scheduling, those are all key factors to not just college, but to employment and to an independent life. So we really try and have a teaching model so that they can take those skills with them once we're done working with them. We want them to graduate college. We want them to get a great job, be able to live independently. So we really try and teach them all of those things. We can meet in person depending on geographic location. Right now, that's in the Boston Northeast areas. We are hoping to expand that with hopefully the expansion of the DDS contract. And we are always also looking to get grant money to be able to provide services for free, as well as offer private pay services. And I'll get into more of the funding later. But depending on that geographic location, we can offer in-person services, although I will say this spring we offered it, and we so far have not had any students who wanted to resume in-person services. They've all wanted to stay virtual. I think it is easier for a lot of students. It's one less place they need to go. I think that will change. I think there will be some students that will want to return to in-person services once they're back on campus. But I think right now, where all of their classes are virtual, it's helpful to have this kind of service be virtual as well. But we really are excited that because of COVID-19, we got to start virtual services, and we see long-term being able to offer whatever the client most requests. So whatever works best for them, whether if they are in one of our geographic in-person locations, we can do that. If they're not, we can do virtual. We can do a mixture of both. We really want to tailor it to meet the needs of each student. So how do we help students? We really want to provide information to the students and their families. You know, the student is our main client and they decide who they want involved as long as they are their own legal guardian. But they usually sign a release form so we can generally talk to families. But we want to help them understand what to expect as college students. What are their rights as a college student? What are the kinds of resources and supports that might be available to them either on campus or in the community? We want to help connect them to those resources, so help them figure out what's out there, but also how do I access it, especially in this new virtual world. We want to help them develop their communication and self-advocacy skills so they can explain what they need to these different people that they might be connecting with, whether that's disability services, a tutor, professors, other students that they're working on projects with. We help them to develop time management and planning skills. That can include organization, scheduling, breaking down really large assignments into smaller and more manageable pieces. We help them with accessing different online databases such as Blackboard and Moodle. I'm sure there's a few others I'm not thinking of. We can help them to figure out what kind of accommodations might be appropriate and help them connect with disability services if they're not already connected. We don't advocate on the student's behalf, but we help them advocate for themselves. So we might role play ahead of time. We might write down a list. We might help them write an email. We can go with them to meetings, but we're not going to speak on their behalf. We just might remind them like, oh, don't forget number 3 on your list or something like that. Just kind of a support system. We also teach them new ways to be social. So whether that's connecting with friends online, writing emails or discussion boards, interacting with peers and professionals virtually. This has been a large focus of this year. We will obviously, as we resume in-person services, also be looking at different ways to be social in person as well. And we really facilitate the students' need to be more self-directed. So oftentimes they want to be independent and they want to do things on their own, and we kind of just give them the tools and the guidance to be able to feel like they're doing that with just a little bit extra support. So some of the services we offer is we start off with each student developing an action plan for each semester of college. So that lists out their goals, who's going to help them with those goals, how they're going to work on those goals, what some barriers to those goals might be. And we really use that to kind of track their progress. We help them set personal schedules, time management, organization, scheduling. We can help with orientation and mobility, so understanding their curriculum, helping break down their syllabi. We have a really great tool that we use that takes all of their syllabi, the most important information, and places it into a one-page document, because we all know sometimes those college syllabi can be monstrous and you have to search through them for what you actually need to find. We can help identify and instruct in the use of appropriate assistive technology, as well as refer them to different resources that might help them get that assistive technology. We can help with academic redirection and focus. So not content per se, we're not content tutors, mostly because some of our clients are so incredibly smart. You would not want me tutoring your engineering student. But we can help them focus on what's the most important. How can I break down large amounts of material into manageable study skills pieces? We collaborate with disability services to help them address disclosure, explain the accommodations, help streamline those processes. Like I mentioned, having to fill out a form every time you need a separate space for testing, to remind them of those things and help make it easier. And then help integrate that assistive technology into their daily routine. Do you need to use different apps for your calendar? Do you use a live scribe pen? Do you need voice to text technology? So what are those things that we can help incorporate into your daily routine? So really our main goals are to help students identify potential barriers and problem solve around them with the student and the college staff. We want to help everyone work together as much as the student will allow. Some students don't want anyone to know that we're working with them. They really like to keep their disability to themselves, and we just work directly with the students. With other students, we have big team meetings with, you know, the DDS, maybe MRC, the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, someone from Disability Services, maybe other support people that they're working at from other organizations and their families. So it's again, it's really customizable, and whatever the student really feels is best for them. So we help them advocate to identify their needs and be able to explain them to college staff. We really want to create a supportive environment between the college and the student to ensure their success. And overall, we just want to improve the outcomes for students with disabilities completing their higher education, which then leads to higher employment potential and more likelihood of living independently without dependence on, funding from the state or federal government. So some of our desired outcomes are we want lasting higher educational commitments. We want to see students with disabilities who start college, finish college. It may take them longer, and that's okay. I always say to students, it's better to take less classes and have it take you longer than try and take on more than you can handle at once and not do well in those classes. We want them to have social experiences that lead to lifelong relationships. College isn't just about academics, but it's about learning how to work with others. There are very few jobs these days where you're not going to have to interact with other people, and those soft skills are really essential. We want to have them matriculate among their peers with and without disabilities, contributing to the average norm. We want to see people see students with disabilities just like they see students without disabilities, and that is very capable and very smart and able of entering the workforce and being a contributing member. So we really want to lead to that higher employment potential.
Allie, can I pause you here for a second? I had a question come in, and I know this is a great question. Someone asked, is this service only available to ASD only individuals, and can ASD individuals with an intellectual disability use the Easterseals service?
That is an awesome question. So yes, so we designed this program for anyone with any disability. The Department of Developmental, when we started it, we went to all the different state agencies, DMH, DDS, MRC, and said, who would like to fund this for your clients? And DDS was the one that bit, and they chose to only fund students with autism spectrum disorder without intellectual disability. That being said, we did our first year have grant funding, and we were able to serve students with any disability. We are always looking to, we're still knocking on the doors of DMH and MRC and trying to get them to come pay for our services. And for DDS, we would like them eventually to expand their offerings to all of their, students with ASD with the intellectual disability, and even people with other developmental and intellectual disabilities that may go to college, or to some form of higher education. Even if it's a certificate program, they may need a service like this. So we will serve anyone with any disability. It's a matter of finding funding, which kind of goes into my next slide. But if we, as I said, DDS has chosen to fund them, but if we have grant money, which we don't have at the moment, but we're always looking for it. So I always tell people, please stay in touch with me, especially if your student is not going to college, this fall. And even by this fall, I could have grant money. You never know. Mm-hmm. So stay in touch. And if funding's an issue, we can try and get creative. We can try and find funding. We also do offer private pay, which is where ABLE account funds come in. You can use your Attainable account money to pay for our services. We also have a 0% interest mini loan program for up to $2,000. That was created with people who don't have great credit in mind. Students can take it out on their own. The student could take one out, and mom could take one out, and dad could take one out, or whoever their family members are that are helping them pay for college. So that is another way. But no, students with any disability can access our services, and we're also not policing your documentation. So, while DDS has their own requirements for documentation, if you come to us, through grants, we have to follow whatever requirement the individual grant has, but especially through private pay, if you tell me you have a disability, then that's good enough. I'm not going to say you need a neuropsych that's within, a year and a half old or anything like that. We really want to serve as many students with disabilities as possible. So yes, anyone with any disability can access our service.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the great question. Private pay, it is $60 an hour. We bill in 15-minute increments. So we generally schedule, virtual meetings or in-person meetings for an hour, just because that gives us enough time to get into what we need to get into with the student and actually complete it. But if the student needs a quick phone call or an email check-in or something like that, you're not always getting charged an hour. We bill in 15-minute increments. We try to do as low of a cost as possible for people while still being able to pay our staff a living wage. So we really try to make that as inexpensive, and we can try and get as creative with, the different kinds of funding as possible. So if funding is the only thing you're concerned about and you feel like this program is really appropriate for your student, please reach out to me and let's talk on an individual basis and see what we can come up with. And we will do our best to figure something out. And I just wanted to kind of end with a few success stories. So the first one is Stanley. He chose for his success story, he actually wanted to do a self-portrait. So this is a self-portrait of Stanley. And he was a student who we served through grant funding for a year. And at the end of the year, they thought about private paying, and then Stanley really said, you know what, you guys taught me a lot and I think I'm good. And so we left it open and we said, if you feel like you're not good in partway through the semester, come on back. But he's done really well. And he's been able to take the skills that we taught him and implement them for the rest of his college career. And he's still in college, but doing really well. He said that he liked the Easterseals staff had a friendly face. It was someone he could talk to and who could offer guidance and support on days where he felt overwhelmed with work. Like, there's so many things I have to get done right now that I don't even know where to start. And oftentimes students then just shut down and don't do anything, as maybe some of us adults do too. So it was someone who could say, okay, let's just look at this one thing right now. What do you need to accomplish for this class? When can you get it done? How can you get it done? And it was someone who could just reassure him of that besides a parent. We helped Stanley draft scripts where he could explain his disability and help his professors understand the challenges he was facing and how his accommodations actually helped him. Oftentimes, there are some professors who are amazing and they're awesome at implementing accommodations, and there are other professors who struggle with it. And I think the more that they understand why someone might need an accommodation, it really does help them to be like, okay, this isn't an unfair advantage, which is sometimes how it's seen. It really is just helping this person to access the curriculum just like everyone else. So our second story is John Miller. John is actually a published author, which is really cool. And he is still currently in our program. So he really, the thing that worked most for John was he went over his plan for each day of the week. He would go through and he would look at each subject and he would say, I need to get this done for this subject. And then they would plan out where in each day he was going to get this done. And so he would plan out the week, and then the next week it'd be like, okay, did you follow the plan? What did you get done? What didn't you get done? How can we revamp this? They helped him see that he could get all his homework done and still have free time. I know that's oftentimes like students are like, but if I study all the time, I can't have any fun. And we want students to see, like, we will build a schedule sometimes for some students if they need this level of detail that is literally from when they wake up in the morning until when they go to bed at night. But we always try and build in there, okay, you do need time, lots of time for studying classes, but what else are you doing? What are you doing in your free time? Because if you are only studying and sleeping and eating, you're going to get burnout quickly. So how can we make sure you get everything done you need to get done, but also incorporate some fun in there? So that you're not so stressed. Okay, I get this homework assignment done and then I get to go play video games for an hour or two, or, go take a walk or a hike outside or whatever it is the student like to do. We would help them kind of build in, we're not giving them rewards, but we'd help kind of build in their own rewards. You get all this stuff done and then you do this fun stuff in your free time, and it makes it much more manageable. And our last one is Bob Hoyt. Bob is one of our first two graduates of the College Navigator program. So Bob started working, as Mary mentioned, we also do assistive technology a lot. And we start that sometimes with really young children through our schools program. We work with a lot of MRC clients for assistive technology related to college. So Bob started working with Easterseals with assistive technology. And this is another really great thing about Easterseals is we have these, while we have basic knowledge of assistive technology, we have this whole department of assistive technology specialists that we can go to say like, this is the problem we're having, you know, do you have any ideas of what could work well with our clients? We also have 2 different assistive technology regional centers in Boston and Worcester, where you can borrow equipment for free for a month or sometimes even 2 months to try it out and see if it works before you decide to invest in it. So he started working through us with assistive technology. And we've had students who continue to sometimes work with an assistive technology specialist and a college navigator at the same time. Because we're within the same organization, we can work together and make sure all of us are working towards the same goals and that we're kind of both helping Bob move in the same direction. So he got the assistive technology, he felt prepared for college, and they made sure he knew how to use them. And then he was introduced to his college navigator, who really in the beginning, you know, part of our intake process is setting up the action plan. There'll be some paperwork for the client to fill out, kind of a checklist of skills. There's some open-ended questions to help us get to know them. And then we have a group discussion where them and anyone else on their support team, usually parents, sometimes DDS or anyone else they want to bring, has an intake meeting to really discuss what kind of supports they need. So with Bob, it was focusing on his schedule, time management, discussing how to manage stress. We're certainly not therapists, but we can help students, you know, talk about what's stressing them out. What are some different coping skills that they might use? They would review his schedule for how he was going to get his classwork done, make any changes in organizing the upcoming week to make sure he was really prepared. You know, we helped him contact his professors either directly or through email if he was unsure of what exactly he needed to do. Instead of just being like, oh, I'm not sure what to do and not doing anything, we would encourage Bob, okay, if you don't quite understand it, we're going to reach out to your professor and we're going to get some clarification. You know, and we really helped increase Bob's confidence, and half the time that's half the battle, is getting students' confidence up so they believe they can do it. And so our college navigators are really great at encouraging them and helping them understand, like, you have this potential to do this. We just need to put these little processes in place, and maybe you need a little extra support, but you're very capable of doing this. And as Bob was kind of exiting the program, we made sure that he was connected with different resources that would help him, you know, continue to be successful after college. So yeah, that's our last kind of success story. Here's my contact information and my phone number, my email and my phone number. You can also go to our website, which is just take out my name and www.eastersealsma.org. That's the basic information, but I would love to answer any questions anyone has. And like I said, if you don't think of them tonight and you think of them later, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Allie, that was great. So much great information. And I can relate to a lot of it as a mom who has a daughter who has many of these challenges. And I just think it is a huge, just huge to have somebody be by your side, kind of help you through all these things so that you can navigate, you know, just navigate the whole experience in the best possible way with the best outcome, right? So yeah, so I have some questions. This first one here is a little bit of a different way of asking, I think, what you already answered, but somebody said, if the student is not receiving services through DDS, are they able to access this program? If so, what options are available?
Yeah, so they certainly can. At this very moment, the other option besides DDS is private pay. And so we could do that. You can use the Attainable Able account money. We have the 0% interest loans where, you know, we normally bill on a monthly basis, but if even that is too much. You can take out that 0% interest loan, and I've seen them make payments really, really low. I want to say like as low as $25 a month, maybe. Obviously, that would take you a while to pay off, but you're not being charged interest. So if that's what it takes to get your student through college, I think it's a very well worth it investment. But again, we're always looking for grant money. So I always encourage people, write down my contact information and keep in touch with me depending on how old your child is. And to be honest, I could even have grant money by next fall. We're always applying and, you know, trying to explore different streams of revenue. So keep in touch with me, and I can always help you explore different options. But yes, there are definitely options for students who don't qualify through DDS, because we really want to serve students with all different disabilities.
Okay, great. Next question. Do you service clients who are already enrolled in college, or do you also help navigate understanding which higher education path to take?
So we do work with students who are already enrolled in college. We started the program 3 years ago. So some clients we've definitely started with from the beginning of their freshman year, and others we kind of jumped right in. So if your student is struggling, and we can certainly jump right in. We don't advise on what colleges you should choose. I do have a gentleman who I know, if you reach out to me directly, I can give you his contact information of who does kind of help navigate of like what is a good college to choose. So I'm happy to share his contact information. We have talked about, we recently did, the past 2 years, we did a College Navigator kind of mini boot camp at the Federation for Children with Special Needs Visions of Community Conference. And we do something similar in the summer. 2 years ago, it was in person. Last summer, it was virtual. It will likely be virtual again this summer. We do that for pre-employment transition clients that we serve in the Worcester area through our specific schools we're partnered with. And if you're unsure, your student, no matter where you go to school, should be connected with MRC and with pre-employment transitional services. So if they're not, get them connected. If you're not sure who your school's vendor is, reach out to me. I have a list of all the high schools and who their vendors are. So whether it's Easterseals or someone else, I can at least point you in the right direction. But we also can do that College Navigator bootcamp for private pay. And we are talking about starting to work with, through private pay, like high school students for more executive functioning skills. It wouldn't be necessarily looking at what college they should go to, but it would be more working on an individualized basis on kind of the similar stuff that we work with the College Navigator students, but that executive functioning, time management, organization, breaking down assignments if they needed extra help. Those would likely, we haven't started that yet. It's kind of just ideas that I've had parents asking for. And so we're trying, again, that's one of the things I love about working at Easterseals is we try and be as creative as possible to meet the needs of students if we're able to. So those services would likely be all virtual just because we're not going to be able to go into high schools and we don't meet in people's homes. But that's definitely an option as well. So again, I would definitely reach out if that's something you want to talk about further, and I would be happy to connect you with that other gentleman and talk about what we could possibly provide.
Sure. And that's the thing, right? Like all these skills really build on your ability to be successful, right? Like especially the executive functioning, managing tasks, like staying on point. So super helpful to have someone who's kind of your, mentor and just, advisor, just like keep you on track. Okay. Next question. Do you work on the social piece, and how would that be done?
We do work on the social piece. So we do it in a variety of ways. So we do it sometimes with scripting. So practicing different social scenes of like how you might approach someone new, or how you might talk to your classmates if you have to work on a group project, or how you might reach out to a classmate. Like if you have a question and you can't get a hold of the professor, maybe you reach out to one of your classmates. We also help you look at what are different clubs on campus or different social opportunities on campus, maybe that aren't clubs. Or are there other social opportunities in the community, either through Easterseals or through other organizations that we know of? And we're always open. I talk about what we provide, and we certainly can't do everything under the sun, But if there is a certain way that you feel like your student would learn best, or a certain service that you feel like your student needs, contact me, let's talk about it. Maybe we can provide it. You know, again, we really try and be creative. So we definitely do want to address the social piece. I know it's definitely been more difficult in the COVID world that we're in, of everything being virtual. A lot of students are like, I don't really want to work on the social piece right now. I'm good. But we're still trying to do our best to kind of address that and figure out other ways that they can also get social interaction via, you know, virtual services.
Okay, sounds good. Next one. What is the best time for a high school student to contact you for pre-planning? And do you attend team meetings for transition planning?
We don't attend team meetings for transition planning, or I guess we haven't yet. I think that would be tricky, and I think we'd have to talk more about that, of exactly what that would entail. You're welcome to reach out to me specifically about that, but we haven't. As far as like the College Navigator services, we really, the sooner the better, just so we have an idea, like if we should tell you to go to DDS, or where are you going to be going to school, we could start kind of pre-planning, obviously, where we need staff. But we generally try and start working with students like the summer before college. So, you know, once they're graduated high school, unless again, they wanted to try and start with those high school services that we're thinking about starting if they needed that kind of executive functioning coaching earlier. But otherwise, we try and start working with them the summer before college to make sure everything, are you connected with disability services? Are you registered for all your classes? Do you have all your books? Like, are all your ducks in a row so that you're starting on the right foot? Because we've definitely gotten students referred to us, you know, the week school starts. And sometimes all of those things are not in place. And then we're playing catch up, and it's not the best for the student. It's better to have already done all that the summer before and make sure they're in the right place. So I would say that's ideal, but we certainly could start earlier depending on the circumstances.
And have you found that, you know, now, like with this past year of remote learning, have you found that that's increased demand for the services?
Yes.
Yes.
I do. We definitely have seen an increased demand. I think students really need a lot more help with virtual schooling and with virtual services, because they can't just go walk into a professor's office. They can't just walk into disability services or walk into tutoring, or, you know, they can't just go there, which is oftentimes just easier. They need, and it's a whole new, for students who hadn't done this before, it's a whole new educational landscape learning online. I mean, I know even just working online took us, you know, was an adjustment for us as adults.
Definitely.
So yes, I definitely have seen an increased demand. And again, we're starting to look at, I just spoke with a high school earlier this morning that reached out about the services, and talking to them about coming in and doing like a workshop for the students to say, like, here's what you guys should start thinking about, kind of like what we did at Visions of Community, like a mini boot camp for high school kids, but going into different high schools to say, like, here's what you should start thinking about. And also this program exists because one of our other goals is to long-term have students who maybe otherwise think that college isn't for them, or that they wouldn't succeed in college, to think, to know about a service like this and say, you know what, maybe that is possible. Maybe with the right supports in place, I could go to college. And it doesn't mean college is for everyone, but I think there are a lot more students that could succeed if they just had a little extra support.
Yeah, I think the support is huge. I mean, I see it as a parent, how important that is, and kind of keeping you on track. As you guys expand the program and grow, like how will you expand it, or how will you change what you do, or, you know, as you continue to, you know, spread to reach more areas, how will that, you know, change?
Yeah, so we're hoping, you know, to kind of hire in geographic areas. One of our targets right now is targeting different community colleges to potentially try and partner with some grant funding to say, you know, there's a lot of students with disabilities that go to community college first. It is generally a little bit more of a supportive environment. There are some really obviously great private and four-year colleges, but community college, especially if you're unsure if it's gonna you're going to be really successful in college, there's also a lot less risk benefit of the cost. So we're thinking about partnering with them and maybe anchoring some staff at different community colleges throughout the state. And then they could serve other students that went to colleges in that area in person or other students virtually. But really our growth will really be determined by demand. So if we have a ton of students that are getting referred to us in one area, then we'll hire people for that area. I mean, my goal is to just have to continuously keep hiring people because we have a demand and we can meet it. So we really want to try and get as creative. So even if your student starts off in a service area that's virtual only, it doesn't mean that they're going to be virtual only forever. We are only a 3-year-old program. And I think our growth over the past 3 years has been awesome. And I see it continuing to grow. So we want to try and expand throughout the state so that we can provide in-person services to as many students as possible.
That's great. When you mentioned Blackboard, I know my daughter had trouble with that this past year because the school she was attending, they used that. She had never used it before. So it was definitely a hurdle to this whole remote learning. So that's great, that it sounds like you just helped to sort of figure that out, with them, best way to, utilize that.
Yeah, definitely. No, they're really confusing. I remember taking my first online class in college and I was like, what is this? Where do I go? I don't know what's going on. Like I had to go to my professor and be like, please help explain this to me. So it can be confusing, but luckily our staff have familiarity with it. They understand it and they can really like help guide them. Like, this is where you need to go and this is where you need to look. And they can look. That's the great thing about screen sharing technology is that they can be like, all right, share your screen. I can take control if it's too difficult to explain to them where to go, and they can show them. So we've really come a long way, I think, in terms of what we're able to provide both in person and virtually.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you said, I feel like the remote learning offers the ability, like you said, to share your screen and just be able to work through something that might be hard otherwise, to do it. Well, I love the stories. I love the personal stories, and I love the skill building. I think it's huge. And I think there are many kids that struggle with all of these things, and putting it all together to get to that outcome is what it's all about. Does anyone else have any other questions? I don't see any other questions in the chat. We can hang out for a few more minutes and see if anyone has another question. But yeah, no, that was great. I think it's such a need. Clearly, it's great to see the success stories, and the program is so young, and it will just continue to build and grow. And I think it's such a much needed thing for individuals and families to tap into.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about it. We think it's a really great program, and we've seen really great success. We have a 90% retention rate with our current students. So much higher than the general retention rate for students with disabilities in college. And I think that just goes to show that little bit of extra support really can make a big difference. So I really want to thank everyone for coming tonight and listening, and really, you guys had great questions. I love when it's interactive like that. And so I really appreciate that. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you think of any questions in the future.
That sounds great. Oh, someone just said thank you. Okay. All right. That's always,
thank you guys.
That's always good. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions coming in. Oh, one more. Hang on. Thank you. Just another thank you. Thank you all. That's great.
Awesome.
All right. Well, fantastic. I think we have answered all the questions. So that was wonderful. Again, thank you for doing this. I would love to do it again. And
yes.
Yeah, this was wonderful. And everyone, thank you for joining. And yeah,
thanks for having me, Mary. We would love to do this again.
Yeah, let's definitely plan to do it again. And yeah, I love the fact that they mesh so well together, like your program and Attainable, but also MEFA's mission and helping students with disabilities just navigate college in the best way. So this is great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I guess we will end here, and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Bye, Ellie. Take care.
Bye, Mary. Thank you.
Bye.